continuing with everything, we're going to go ahead and start taking a look at the 7.0 Carnage. We're going to kind of go through all the abilities just like we did in our Watchmen preview. Kind of take a look, see where everything is stand, go over the abilities, what they do, all that good stuff. So first things first, Carnage, it was a PvP burst spec. It's been pretty much neutered for a long time now. I think the last time it was good was probably 3.0, 4.0. There's a lot of problems with it. Overall, when we kind of go through the choices, there's still a lot of problems with it. The spec, it might be better though. It's definitely going to perform better than it is currently, so it's getting a buff. I don't think that buff's going to be big enough to basically translate to the PvP game. PvE, it actually might be really good. It might be on par with the other, with Fury and Annihilation and Watchmen now. But we'll see as we kind of get further. So starting off, we have our level 27 choice. Just like all classes, each time you go to a certain level, you get a choice of abilities. The other abilities now have turned into baseline, so we're not really going to cover them. We're just going to really look through the choices and look at what's been removed. So at level 27, we get Piercing Gore, Driving Gore, or Berserk Gore. So Piercing Gore, Gore deals damage to enemies in a line behind the target. Completely useless. No one's ever going to take this for anything. You literally have to have people in a line. Makes no sense. I'm not sure why this is a thing. I don't understand. We don't know what the range of it is, but even still, it can't be that far. So Piercing Gore, something no one's ever going to take. It's a completely useless skill. Next thing we got is Driving Gore. So Gore deals 10% additional damage per movement enhancing effect active on you, increases your movement speed by 10% for 10 seconds. This is relatively good. So if you pop Predation or Transcendence on top of the movement speed, you'll get another 10%. It's really good, plus you get additional movement speed, so at minimum you're going to be getting 20% additional damage over 10 seconds while your Transcendence or Predation is active. It's just a straight up DPS increase. Get a lot of speed, really stick onto people. I see this as kind of the default choice right now with PvP. This is one of the reasons why I think Carnage is getting a buff. This is going to be really good. The only issue that might have is the game engine, like keeping up with it, but we'll see. That's going to be a lot of speed. The next one, it's also interesting, is Berserk Gore. Whenever Gore consumes a charge of Berserk, its cooldown is reset. So you're going to be able to use Gore a lot. A lot. It's a lot of more burst. Really, really bursty. So this could also be an option in PvP. It's going to basically be, do you want the mobility, the extra movement speed, or do you want more just flat out raw burst damage? That's going to be the two choices. I think when you look at like regs, we're going to be looking at the Driving Gore, and then when we look at ranked, you're probably going to go Berserk Gore just for the flat out hard swap DPS increase. It's going to be really good to hard swap on this character now. With Berserk Gore and stuff like that, they're just going to be able to hard swap constantly, so it's going to be pretty good. So that's a level 27 choice. Two good options and one that's just garbage. Don't ever take Piercing Gore. Level 35, this is really the same for all the specs. It's very just one-sided. Like, they didn't put anything in here to basically make you choose anything. So we have Snaring Slashes, Overwhelming Slashes, and Predation. Snaring Slash just means whenever you're Vicious Slash, Massacre, and Ravage, it slows the target by 50% for 10 seconds. Again, it sounds good, it sounds fine. The problem is where this is put in the choice list, it's not gonna even, you're never gonna take it because of the other choices. Overwhelming Slashes, Ravage immobilizes the target for 3 seconds, generates 1 rage. It's fine. Was better back when they had the actual Ravage, where it was the channeled ability, so this is kind of never going to take this for any reason whatsoever. And you'll see a lot of these choices, like there's always one like oddball where it seems like they just didn't know what to do, and they just pretty much said, you know what, let's just throw it in there, because we need 3 choices. So then finally, Predation, the one that everyone's going to take. It's just like it is now. So it applies predation to you and all Operation Group members within 40 meters. Purges movement and parrying effects. Increases movement speed by 80%. Increases melee and range defense chance by 10%. Lasts 10 seconds, 30-second cooldown. Everyone's going to take that. Snare and Slash would be a decent option if it was put later down in the choices, but when you go up against predation, it's just not going to be a choice. That's why I don't understand why they're not making it baseline, just because it's such a natural choice where no one's going to choose anything over it. PvP, PvE, doesn't matter. Everyone's going to choose predation. The other two are just so much down on power level than predation is. So the level 35 choice is pretty much going to default to predation. When we get to level 43, this seems to be like where all of the specs, where all of their choices get a little interesting, where you can almost see all three of these being ran. We have defensive stance, rushdown, frenzied blade. So defensive stance is dealing damage with Massacre, grants defensive stance, increases our damage reduction by 2% per stack, stacks up to 3 times in the last 6 seconds. It's not bad. It definitely has some utility. A nice DR on the damage reduction, plus it stacks up. And if you can get it to stack up, my question is if you can delay the stacks to increase it by more than 6 seconds. Like you used to do with, what was it? Like the Overload Saber for Watchmen. Like you could actually delay the last stack. If it works that way, you could really extend this a lot. So you could extend it to, what, 12... 17 seconds, 18 seconds if you do it right. Something like that. Next one is Rushdown. Massacre deals 10% additional damage per movement, enhancing effect active on you. If you're going down the mobility route, you're just going to combine all of them. So you're going to take the predation, you're going to take the previous one, you're just going to basically stack movement speed on you and try to hit really hard. Next one is the one that I actually think is probably the best choice. So Massacre's critical chance increased by 20%. Activating Massacre reduces the cooldown of Frenzy by 2 seconds. It's really good. I don't see why you wouldn't take that if you're just going for all-out damage. That's definitely going to be the PvE talent. Probably the PvP talent too. Unless the mobility is just that good. We don't know yet how the whole mobility thing is going to be. If you need the mobility, then you're going to take Rushdown. That's why defensive stance kind of loses out, because the other two are just so good. They're definitely way better. So either Frenzy Blade or Rushdown. I would lean more towards Frenzy Blade. It's just more DPS increase. Plus, if you stack it with the Gore one that we took a look at earlier, you're really starting to get really hard burst damage. So overall, really good choices here. The two obvious ones are Rushdown and Frenzy Blade. Carnage is just getting a buff overall. I think this is really gonna... Everything's synergizing well with Carnage. You kind of see with the other choices. It really makes a lot of sense. The spec, I think, is going to be back in a big way. Level 47. These are some interesting choices. So level 47, we have Furious Power, Swiftness, Quickness. Furious Power is what we have now. Same thing. Basically, is our stacks. We stack it up. We get 4 charges of it. It increases our melee attacks by 25% for the next single target one that we do. It has a 30-second cooldown. It's not going to be good without the set bonus, though. So that one's pretty much not going to be taken, ever. I don't see, especially over the other two. The other two might actually be insane. We'll see, but the other two sound really insane. I don't know how this game's going to handle like the speed of the spec. It's going to be off the charts. We have Swiftness. Critically hitting grants Swiftness, which increases your movement speed by 5% and your critical chance by 5% per stack. Stacks up to 5 times in the last 6 seconds. That is absolutely insane. That is one of the most insane choices I've ever seen. If you stack that with the other movement, I mean, you're talking such a big DPS increase. You're almost doing double damage for 6 seconds. That's going to be huge. It's going to be such a big burst window. I think Swiftness in this category is just going to win out over everything. Based on just on the paper how it looks. And next we have Quickness. This is also good though. Critically hitting with force energy attacks reduce the cooldown of offense abilities that cost rage by 1 second. So you're just reducing your GCDs. This is going to be probably for PvE more. You're going to be able to do more sustained damage. Again, the buffs debuff to Carnage just keep coming. So you got Quickness for PvE, Swiftness for PvP, and then Furious Power we're not going to touch. There's no point to run it. And we go to our level 60 choice, which is pretty much the same for all three specs. This is going to be interesting with Carnage, the way it's going to play. So we have Inexorable, so it's basically our cooldown on our stun. So we generate 4 rage when stunned, immobilize, put to sleep, get knocked around. Additionally, the cooldown of Unleash is reduced by 30 seconds, which is our CC breaker. It's a solid choice. We're pretty much always taking it right now because it's in the tier 1 talent tree and there's not a lot. But it does have some kind of competition now. This is where it's going to be very dependent on your playstyle. The next one we have is Interlooper. So Force Charge grants an additional charge and builds 2 Fury. So you get 2 leaps and you build Fury. That's really good. Especially with the mobility that we're losing. I don't think you're going to take this on Carnage though. You might take it on Fury. You're definitely taking it on Watchman. You're not taking this on Carnage for any reason. Carnage already has enough movement. So what you're probably going to be taking in Carnage, and this is because I think dot specs are going to be a big thing. The cleave specs like Madness and Hatred actually might be really good. We have reduces defensive roll, reduces the AoE damage by 30%, increases internal and elemental damage reduction by 3%. I think this is going to be the default choice. If you really want to take your stun breaker, you could, just because you can get a few more burst windows, but I don't think it's worth it. I think defensive roll is better. It's just a 30% DR for AoE damage, and with how good Madness is going to be, that sounds like it's going to be something you're going to need, and then you get the other internal elemental damage. So overall, defensive roll probably wins out here. The other specs, definitely the Fury and Watchman, the other two are definitely a choice. It's going to be a perfect playstyle because you don't really need defensive roll in there. You would rather have like some cooldown on those. Next thing we got is the level 68 choice. This is pretty standard against all the specs too. They're all getting the same thing. This is going to be pretty much a default choice. There really isn't anything really good here besides Blood Ward. But we have Cloak of Annihilation, Path Carver, Blood Ward. Cloak of Annihilation is each use of Assault and Battery Assault reduces the active cooldown of Cloak of Pain by 3 seconds. It's got such a short cooldown anyway, it's not really worth it. There's also a limiter on it. I think it's like cannot occur like more than once every 1.5 seconds. So, and how much are you really using Battery and Assault? Not much. So it does. It's kind of weak. It's very low on power level. Path Carver increases the damage dealt by Sweeping Slash by 15%. You're never using this for damage. This is just to find people in stealth. It's a joke, honestly. I don't understand why this is even here. It makes no sense. They could literally remove this talent. No one uses it. Blood Ward is the default one. So it's what we have now. So activating Saber Ward grants Blood Ward, which grants immunity to stun, sleep, lift, and incapacitating effects for 6 seconds. In addition, getting attacked while Saber Ward is active heals you for 3%. This cannot occur more than once per second. The heal, no one cares about. It's so minuscule that it's nothing to write home about. What really is the whole thing is the immunity to stuns. So Carnage, we're taking Blood Ward every single time. We can pop Blood Ward and go through our big rotation, especially if we're choosing the Gore path. It's going to be a lot of damage very quickly. I'm hesitant to say it just because it's weapon damage, because white damage has always in the game been kind of meh and mediocre. But if white damage is good, then Carnage is going to be really amazing. Like, it's going to have so much more burst. It actually might be bursting higher than PT's. Time will tell, but it just really depends on how white damage is going to work. If white damage is still terrible, Carnage isn't going to go anywhere. But if white damage is good, Carnage is going to be one of the top specs. And then we get to our level 73 choice. It's the same for all the Sentinel classes, all the Marauder classes. Force Choke, Mad Dash, Undyne Rage, stuff we already have now. So Force Choke grants the Force Choke ability, which stuns the target. Deals a small amount of damage and builds 3 rage over the duration of the cast. Can be cast while moving. It's our stun. It's our hard stun. We're not going to take this at all. There's one utility, there's one choice in here that makes it impossible to take this. The next thing is Mad Dash. We all know what it is. It's just kind of like a movement ability. Grants the Mad Dash ability, which makes you dash forward 20 meters, dealing a moderate amount of damage. It doesn't do any damage. Let's be real, Mad Dash does almost nothing. Increases your defensive chance by 100%, while dashing cannot be used while immobilized or hindered. Yeah, it's okay, I guess. But it's not amazing. It's meh. It's something that we're going to have to live without. I mean, it's useful in gap closing. It's useful. You can do some tricky stuff with it right now. Like, you time it right, you can avoid some damage and stuff like that. But overall, it's not great. Next thing we have is the one that's going to be the default for all 3 specs. Is Undyne Rage. Grants Undyne Rage ability, which reduces the damage you take by 99% for 6 seconds. 2-minute and 30-second cooldown. That's pretty standard with everything that's going on. There's no way you're not taking that. It's a get out of jail free card. It's an anti-focus card. You can use it to blow cooldowns from people. You can use it on their most powerful stuff. It's just so good. There's no reason why you're going to take any of the other things. The stun is not worth Undyne Rage. It just isn't. Because the stun, you're only affecting one person, while Undyne Rage, you can affect everyone. So, what's going to happen is Carnage, again, like the other Marauder specs, is not going to have a hard stun. They're not going to have a soft stun either. That will also kind of take a look at that, but that's going away. So, the level 73 choice, we're looking at Undyne Rage. Level 78 is not very good. I mean, I'm not sure why they're putting the better choices earlier, but they kind of are. This is going to be a very playstyle dependent kind of choice as far as what you want. So we have Thirst for Rage, Interceptor, Brazen. Thirst for Rage is already in the game. You heal for 1% of your max health whenever you activate an ability to consume Rage. In addition, Bloodthirst generates 12 Rage when activated. Pretty standard. The health isn't that much, it's 1%. It's just not that great. It's getting better. Here's the weird thing about the 1% of stuff. The more health we have, the better it gets. So it's actually getting better, but it's still not good enough to actually take as far with Carnage. Carnage isn't something that tries to ramp up its health like Annihilation. Like Annihilation, it makes sense because you have the self-heals on top of it. So it just gives you more healing overall. As far as Carnage goes, not so much. 1% is nothing when that's all you have. Next we have is Interceptor. Force Charge, Devastating Blast, Snare the target, reduces movement speed by 50% for 6 seconds. Carnage doesn't need this. They're so fast right now, and the way the playstyle works, they don't need any snares. They're going to be so sticky to people just based off of base movement speed, where you're not taking it. The default choice is going to be Brazen, so it increases your damage reduction by 2%. You build 2 Fury when attack, cannot occur more than once every 1.5 seconds. Just damage reduction, building Fury for more DPS. That's going to be what Carnage is going to take every single time. The other 2 abilities make no sense for the spec. That's kind of the other disappointment, is when they were doing these specs for the Maras, they really didn't make them cover all specs. There's certain specs that are going to have a definite choice. So this one's going to be Brazen for Carnage. You're not going to take the other 2. The other 2 are basically useless. And then finally, we kind of take a look at the abilities that get removed. So Obfuscate is getting removed from all 3 specs, like we talked about before in the Watchman guide. That's a key ability. That's the biggest thing that is getting removed. Like Obfuscate is such a good ability when you're going against classes that do white damage. PTs with rail shot, snipers, and especially snipers. Snipers are going to absolutely wreck Marauders right now. Without Obfuscate, I don't even think it's going to be close. With Obfuscate, you can't outplay them. Without it, no. So what it did was it reduced the melee and ranged accuracy by 90% for 6 seconds. Pretty much made it so snipers couldn't really hit you if they were playing marksman. PT's rail shot would miss. It's just a very good survivability thing, especially in 1v1s. You can also help other people with it if they're getting focused by like a sniper that's hitting hard. You can obfuscate them, they're basically going to do nothing. Very good against concealment ops too. It just really takes down the 1v1 potential of Carnage again. Even with Carnage's burst, the obfuscate's a big deal. Big deal. If they still had obfuscate, they would be able to really burst classes really hard like snipers and stuff before they can get their damage out. But without obfuscate, it's going to be really trading. Just kind of trading back and forth damage. It really reduces the skill cap of the class, is what it does. I don't know why it was removed, but that's BioDaddy for you. Next we have Intimidating Roar. I'm fine to see this go. It's everybody knows it. It's a soft stun. It breaks on damage, so it paralyzes 8 nearby enemies for up to 6 seconds, and it breaks on damage. It had some utility, had some usefulness here and there. It was cool to stop like Void Star doors and stuff with it, which is a whole nother problem that we're going to get into. I don't think anyone's ever going to cap a door if it's not in stealth anymore, because there's just not enough CC to actually stop that. It's going to be interesting, because the time to kill is not going to be that fast. But Intimidating Roar, we're losing it. Not a big loss for Carnage. Carnage doesn't really care about Intimidating Roar that much. It was better with Annihilation, cared more about it, because the dots keep rolling. Next we have Crippling Slash. Again, no one cares about Crippling Slash. Slashes the target for weapon damage and slows its movement speed by 50%. You don't need the slow, and Crippling Slash didn't do anything for damage. So, that's pretty much where Carnage is right now. Overall, it's going to get really buffed. It's going to be a lot better than what it is currently. How good is it going to be? It's going to depend on just the overall flow of white damage. If white damage is really good, then Carnage is going to be really, really good. It might surpass Fury. It just might be the #1 PvP spec again. We looking back on the choices. Standard build would be something like Driving Gore, so we start stacking the movement speed things. Our level 35 choice will get Predation. Level 43 choice, we're going to keep going with the movement speed, so we're going to get Rushdown. Then we're going to get Swiftness, which I think is the most broken ability so far that we've looked at. Stacked on all of our movement speed, it's going to be so much different DPS. We're going to get Swiftness there at level 47. Level 60, we're going to take Defensive Roll. We don't need movement speed. We don't need our stun breaker. We just need to be able to stay in the fight longer and get our burst windows off more with Carnage. Level 68, we're taking Blood Ward. Again, help us get the burst windows off. It's just that immunity to CC. We don't care about the healing. We just want that 6 seconds of basically able to just kill everything on the screen. And then we have our level 73 choice. We're taking Undyne Rage. Again, just survivability. We're not worried about stunning people. We have Gore. We're not really about anything else other than just basically surviving to get this huge damage off. We're already fast. We just need to be able to survive hits. Then finally, we have our level 78 choice, where we're taking Brazen. Again, damage reduction, more tankiness, just to be able to help us get out there, stay out there longer, hit more burst windows. And that's pretty much the end of the Carnage preview. Overall, Carnage is going to be a strong spec. There's going to be specs that are stronger, but I think as far as like the Marauder and Sentinel specs, I could see it either being #1 or #2. I think it's going to be really strong and people are underestimating it.